So a lot of people have been trying to say that when I say that Elon Musk is committing ID theft and trying to sit there and say, like to YouTube, for example, that no, he's not committing ID theft. First of all, for you people that are trying to do that to limit either myself or other people that are part of the class action, which, by the way, are not necessarily people who had to sign anything, there are absentee classes, which are basically like during like the mesothelioma lawsuits, which was asbestos, right? It was just for everyone who was potentially impacted by asbestos because it was used everywhere. So it was like all kinds of people. But if you try to interfere with those people that are part of the classes and you injure or restrict them or do things to try to dissuade them, all that you are doing is increasing the likelihood of the amount of damages that people like myself will obtain in the damages at the final judgment. So right now what I want to do is I want to be able to try to explain to you guys and to everyone what seems to be the controlling law that covers the crime that Doge will ultimately be charged with. And that's this: 18 U.S.C. Code 1030, fraud related to activity in connection with computers. Now, these deal with like the big government computer systems, having no one access computers without authorization, access to computers. But this is the one down here is where I just want to go intentionally without authorization to access any non-public computer of a department or agency of the United States government, accessing such computers of the department or agency that is exclusively for the use of the government of the United States, or in cases of computers not exclusively for such use, in use by the United States government in the United States, as such computers affects the use by or for the government of the United States, knowingly with intent to defraud, access protected computers without authorization or in excess of authorized access by means of such conduct furthers the intent of fraud and obtains anything of value unless the object of the fraud or the thing obtained consists of the use of the computer and the value of such use is not more than $5,000 in any 1 year period. So you got to think, first of all, what do you think is the value of all the Treasury computers or Social Security, Department of Education? What do you think the actions that Elon has been able to do with that data against individuals of whom he is in competition with, or agencies that regulate him, and the use of this data to become pieces of value is when he accesses this data and then uses it against people of whom he is in competition with federal contracts from all over the world, or attacking agencies that are regulating him, which only increases the value, which turns this into ID theft. Because ID theft federally, and basically what everyone understands, this is probably why you people are saying that what Elon is doing is not ID theft. The problem is, with ID theft, the only thing you need to do for ID theft to be classified, for collecting data and to turn it into ID theft, normally under the national rule, is you have to obtain something of value. In this case, it's $5,000 or more. I guarantee you, the people who he's in competition with, or all of these other departments that he is attacking and defunding, who obtain incredible value to him, is ID theft. Now, let's talk about the real difficult area when it comes to this. You see, you got to think that a person who was like at this level of government, right? At this level, the level of, say, running the Treasury Department payment system, the personnel systems, Social Security, healthcare system with HHS, or the other computers that he's had access to, the Department of Education. All of those people who are at that level managing these systems, it's not just that they're at the federal level. You see, they have like federal situations, but the people of whom are in these systems are like myself. I'm in California. He has copies of maybe my data. All right, and I'm all the way out here in California. I'm not the resident of the United States federal government. I'm the resident of the state of California. So the question is, how does the crime pertain to me or wherever you live? Now, this law goes into a particular area on that subject because the 350 some odd million people in the United States of whom this crime is being committed against live in all 50 states. And they're part of the United States federal government, but they're also part of their state government. So what does the law here do with regard to states? And that comes down, this is computer used by the federal government, damages, where is that thing? This section, damages prohibited, no. Here it is. Fines, and this is where this comes down to at 2B. Fines under this title or imprisonment not to exceed more than 5 years, or both. The case of an offense under A2 is an attempt to commit an offense punishable under this subparagraph if the offense was committed in pursuant to commercial advantage or for private financial gain. Clearly, Elon is doing this for his commercial advantage because he's one of the largest federal contractors, right? So he's influencing federal contracts and regulatory bodies that have regulation over his company. So he is probably doing things that achieve commercial advantage. But here's the other point. The offense was committed in furtherance of any crime or tortious act, violation of the United States laws, that of the United States or any state, or the value of the information between $5,000. This is where it starts to go into this very important area. The states. You see, a person who would commit a crime, say, who's in charge of the Social Security computer, how do you make certain that, because a person who's in charge of the Social Security computer systems and that data is worth trillions of dollars on the black market. Unspeakable amounts of money. Would you spend 5 years in prison to have $1 trillion worth of contracts coming your way by every black market operative in the world because you're basically selling everybody's ID? You know how you make certain that they don't do that? You send them to jail for 5 years for the federal crime. And then they violate all 50 state laws. And they get handed off from state to state to state to state to state. So just 2 years, for example, a small crime of 2 years in one state for some level of identity theft. For example, like in my state of California. In my state of California, all that you need to do in California is to access someone's personal information without their consent is a crime. This can include copying my data. So simply going onto a computer and copying my data without my consent is a misdemeanor. 1 year in jail, $5,000 fine. And this can go to a full-on felony that can put you in jail for 3 years and a $10,000 fine. And then you get handed off to all the other states of the Union, depending on their degree of what the law is for that particular crime. So when I say that Elon Musk is committing ID theft, it's in part because in my state, the simple act of copying people's identity at this scale is identity theft. But that might be different in your state. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Elon isn't going to also go to prison in your state. There are, what is it, like I think it's like 14, 15 states that are, blue states that are up there trying to deal with Elon. Elon should be a little bit nervous because probably each and every one of those states is going to want a little piece of him to go to their jails for a couple of years in each individual state, which is what made certain that you've never had this problem in your life. The reason why, in my 50 years of existence, in my 55 and a half years of walking this earth, this crime has never occurred at the Treasury Department. And you don't want to know why? Because of that law. Because if somebody at the Treasury Department violated people's rights, say at 200 or 300 million people, that person would be handed off to each individual state for the rest of his life. Just a minor infraction gets him handed off to all 50 states for 1 or 2 or 3 years in each individual state. At least that's how I'm reading this. Now, maybe I'm wrong. But when I hear of any state, that means all the states can get a hold of you just as easily if you are working at Treasury, which is like what Elon did. Department of Education, that would be another violation. Or Social Security, HHS. I mean, I could go on. This is the problem that Elon has. This is the crime he has committed. And he owes us not just simply for the federal laws, which I've identified in my other videos, which I've identified as plus or minus, relatively easily $166,000 per American. But this talks about tortious act. That's the civil penalties. That's the state fines. In my state of California, what he has done will pay my state of California $7,500 per person. And then myself, I'll be able to get $750. Multiply that by all the people of my state. Your state has similar laws that he will have to pay. So after this group is done paying the federal laws that I identified, which is about $166,000, which is more money than they could ever possibly have, because you have to multiply that by everyone in the country, and then the state laws, which obliterates them for everything they could possibly own, and then they get to be handed off from one state to another state to another state to another state, till however how many states that want to charge them with crimes are done charging them with crimes. And you get to go from state to state to state to state to state. And that's how they made certain that the people who were in charge of these vast systems that literally control what any criminal organization in the world or any foreign power would pay trillions of dollars to access. That's how they stopped it. Because a misdemeanor for just 2 years puts you in jail for the rest of your life, handed 2 years per state that you violated. And that is why Elon Musk has committed ID theft, because he has committed ID theft in at least a few states. And that's all that he has to do by dealing with the computer systems that he's been playing around with. Thank you.
18 U.S. Code 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or to different punishments, pains, or penalties, on account of such person being an alien, or by reason of his color, or race, than are prescribed for the punishment of citizens, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year, or both, and if bodily injury results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of a dangerous weapon, explosives, or fire, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned for any term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death.
I hope you got value out of this, and if you did, please like and share this video, and subscribe. That's just trying to help us grow to the point where, yeah, we can start restoring the honor of Washington, D.C., and begin this debate and solve this debate and clean the swamp by the American people collectively agreeing that the swamp must be ended, and that begins by restoring our honor. So please like, share, and subscribe.